ASMR. Hey everybody, today I thought I would read another bunch of creepy stories. This one is called The Masked Old Man. Once I was staying over at a friend's house and was sleeping in her bed. She had a large double bed pushed up against the wall, so we both slept in there. I slept with my back facing the room that night, with my friend sleeping next to me. About midway through the night, I started having a very elaborate dream about work. The dream wasn't anything significant, just something stupid. Then, as it progressed, it became more ominous. A man wearing a mask, similar to a Japanese kabuki mask, was chasing me around my workplace, attempting to kill me. Then at some point, I began to wake up as I felt someone standing directly behind me. The dream progresses again, and the man has found me. At that point, my wakeful state began to set in further as I could feel someone gently stroking my hair. Terrified, I laid there, slightly disoriented, as I was still somewhat in my dream. Then I hear a gravely voice from behind me say, "Hello, little girl," and a number of other things I can't remember, as well as the sensation of someone still stroking my hair. I'm fully awake at this point, but lying still as can be with my eyes pressed shut, fearing for my life. Finally, I mustered up the courage to sit up in bed and look around the room. There was no one there. To this day, I can still remember the deep, gravely sound of his voice. The thing that made it real for me is when I told the dream to my friend. She recounted several harrowing tales of seeing an older man's spirit wandering around her house. Photographic evidence. I am a mental health therapist. One of my schizophrenic clients said he was seeing a girl in his room, and he said she was talking to him. We believed it to be a hallucination, as he was living alone. The doctor I was with decided to challenge his delusion and had him take a picture of her so that we could meet her. During the next visit, he brought a picture. And yes, she was there. To our astonishment and horror, there was a picture of him on the couch with a strange, creamy ghost-like image of a girl hovering behind him, shrouding him in white like wings or hair. Very light in color, but subtle shimmering image. What was eerie was seeing him sitting on the couch with his head down, very depressed looking. She was literally haunting him. All of our jaws hit the floor. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone Everyone examined the picture, and we could tell it was real. Dude was very low functioning and could not have photoshopped it. We were pretty freaked out. The doctor, in utter amazement, knew medication wouldn't treat this and said, "I can't help you with this. You are going to need to see your clergy for this." First college apartment. My first apartment during college was haunted. I had a really long hallway that led from my room to the front door. At night, I would often hear footsteps echoing in the hall when my roommate wasn't home. My dog would hear it too and just start barking, looking out into the hall as if he saw someone there. One night while I was studying, I noticed a sign I had hanging on my doorknob start swinging back and forth. No windows were open. The AC wasn't on. There was no reason for it to be moving. I said, "Stop," and it promptly stopped swinging. A few months later, I found out from my landlord that a few years prior, a tenant had hung himself in the basement. Maybe it was him. Ghostly drumming. I was 19. I used to walk to Denny's from my house every evening, leaving around 8 or 9 p.m. There, I would hang out with my friends, smoke, and drink coffee, play cards until 2 or 3 in the morning. This one particular evening, I left later than usual, probably around 11 p.m. or so. Denny's was 5.7 miles from my house, so it was a bit of a walk. So I'm walking along, and I had done a dozen times before, I get to a wooded area that's always got dark, and I started hearing music from a house off the road. Just heavy bass drums with a real steady beat. Not a big deal, because people out that way always had big parties. I continued walking, but the music wasn't going away. I stop and listen real carefully, and it sounds more like drums in a continuous loop. There's not another parallel road for a couple miles from where I am. So it can't be coming from a vehicle. I continue walking, and for about 2 miles, I continue to hear this music. Not getting any louder, but not getting any quieter. I stop and listen again. It sounds a lot like Native American drums. I walk again, quickening my pace. As I walk, listening to the drums that are following me, I start to smell gunpowder. I walk a mile, listening to drums and smelling gunpowder. I may have started getting really creeped out, so I'm not sure if I heard footsteps behind me or if it was just my imagination. I only hear them for a couple 100 feet. Then I walk into a clearing in the woods, and it all disappears. The drums stop. I don't smell gunpowder. No footsteps except for mine. Just me walking. I get to Denny's entirely shook up, but I didn't share my story for a few days. Okay guys, I just want to say that I'm reading these off the internet, and if a sentence doesn't make sense, or if I look like I'm struggling to read it, it's because they're not, most of these aren't really edited. Like the grammar might be off, or they're missing a word, or there's a word that doesn't make sense. So if I stumble over something and I look like I'm confused, I'm just reading it as it's written. Haunted theater. When visiting my sister's college, she sent me into the theater to get some stuff for her. It was dark and the building was locked, but she lent me her keys. Now, she told me that the place had a reputation for being haunted, but being the skeptic that I am, I took the keys and hustled off without a second thought. I let myself in, headed to the closet she said her stuff was in, and someone walked up behind me. No kidding, I could hear the footsteps, feel the floorboards move, and hear them creak. I could even hear the rustle of fabric moving. And then there was that indefinable sense of there being someone else there. You know how you can just tell when someone's walked into a room, even if you can't really see them or hear them. I turned around fully expecting to have to explain why I was in a locked building after hours. But there was no one there. I started singing at the top of my lungs to mask out the creepy silence, grabbed my sister's stuff, and bolted out of the building. My sister apologized for days, and I never went into the building alone again, day or night. A most haunted family. I'm pretty sure I am actually the only person in my family that does not have a personal ghost story. I find my family to be very intelligent people that would not make this up. But it's also hard to imagine something that you yourself have never experienced, you know? So here are some of their stories, and they're pretty creepy. My mother lived in a haunted house when she was very young. They feel that there was more than one spirit in the house. Apparently, the house had a colored history. Once my mother woke up in the middle of the night, and a dark figure was messing with the items on her bedside table. She assumed it was my grandmother and asked her what she was doing. A voice in her head told her to go back to sleep, and she did. The next morning, she asked her mother what she had been doing in her room that night, my mother confirmed that it was not her in the room. They considered their parents' room to be the most haunted. Once my mother and uncle were, I guess, having some sort of endurance contest and were hiding under the bed covers. They could hear something playing with a vacuum cleaner, and my mom just bolted, leaving my uncle to suffer alone. He finally springs out of the bed, runs, and literally dives off the top of a rather steep stairway, then proceeds to float to the bottom of the stairs, where my grandpa just happens to be waiting with open arms. They all swear that there is no way he would have been able to jump all of those steps. Another time, my mom was kind of a tomboy and was outside getting beat up by some neighborhood boys. And she looked up at her house and could see what she believed was my grandpa just sitting in his study, window watching. And she couldn't figure out why he wasn't helping her. When she finally got inside and confronted him, he swore up and down that he had not been in his study at all that day. Apparently, they had babysitters that would run out of the house in the middle of the night because of scary things that happen. In later years, when I was about 10 or so, my mom worked at a local restaurant after closing, cleaning up the place. It was always rumored that this place was haunted, and she had so many scary experiences that she eventually wouldn't even go alone. So my stepfather started going with her and experienced some of the craziness himself. She would put up all the chairs on the table, turn around briefly, then turn back, and they would all be down again. But apparently the ghost's favorite game was running in and out of the large metal door to the kitchen. One night it kept happening over and over and over again, until finally my stepfather put a tall metal bread rack in front of the door. A few moments later, they heard a loud bang and went to check. Something had run into the door so hard that it left a dent from the door hitting the bread rack on the other side. The only other one I can think of comes from my older sister. She lived alone in an old apartment complex, also rumored by many to be haunted. She says that she was washing her face in the sink one night and looked into the mirror to see another face behind her. She said that she was calm and told them that she didn't mind sharing the space as long as they left her alone and didn't try and scare her or something like that. Writing in the mirror. This is the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. Most people I tell try to come up with a logical explanation, but there is none. So after living in my new house for 5 months or so, I decide to take a shower. One of my friends had just slept over. I had taken a ton of showers in that bathroom already, so it's not like it was the first time. I take my shower, get out to dry off, and look at the steamed up mirror. On the mirror, in perfect writing that no human finger could have done, read something along the lines of, "Dear Father, please forgive me." I completely forgot the rest because I was just so freaked out. But it was terrifying. The bathroom door was locked the entire time, and no one could have gotten in. It had also never been there any other time I took a shower. It was really scary. A loud ghost. When I was about 13 or 14, I lived in a normal block house in a suburban neighborhood with my family. We were told by the previous tenant that her husband had died in the house, but we weren't told specifically where. One night, after I had turned the lights off to go to sleep, I heard a loud rustling and then a bang that caused me to jump up and turn the lights on. Everyone in the house had heard it and ran into the hallway to see if I was okay. As I looked into my room to see what the noise was, I saw my jewelry box fully open with all the drawers hanging open. I threw that thing in the closet so quick and never pulled it out to use again. I still heard things in that house. One night I was watching something funny on TV in my room, and I heard a man, seemingly sitting right next to me, laugh in my ear as clear as day, and it wasn't from the TV. My brother Joel. My brother Joel was killed in an ATV accident a little over 4 years ago. My daughter has just turned 3. She kept waking up in the middle of the night and coming into my room. When I would take her back to bed and ask her why she was getting up, she would reply, "The guy in my room." She would always point to the corner that her dresser was in and swore there was a guy in her room. It wasn't too long after that she started talking about Uncle Joe, who she'd never met. Trish, isn't it? On the night my mother died, at about 7 p.m., her very old grandfather was getting ready for bed in a nursing home about 200 miles away. He was just about to get into bed when he stopped and said he couldn't because Trish was in it. And he sat patiently in his bedside chair. At about 10 past 7, he smiled and said, "She's gone now," and got into bed. This was witnessed by an aunt. I wonder if when people die, they don't give off some kind of final communication. I was with my mom as she died, but she didn't speak to me though, so who knows? Okay, guys. I'm gonna end this now. I can hear that a train is about to come. It's like really, really late at night. Actually, it's really, really early in the morning right now. I should be in bed, but I can't sleep. So I thought I'd try and make a video while it was kind of quiet, but of course the refrigerator creaked and I heard the heating unit kick in and the train tracks start to rumble, so it never fails. But I thought I'd give it a try while I was still awake. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll just do gum for a minute or so and then end it. Some of these were creepy, some of them were like, eh. Oh, my battery is at like 10%, so I'm gonna end this before the video gets cut off anyway, so bye guys.